that's what I'm trying to do for these law students. Like just get their brains to stop thinking so, literally, and like, okay, you can there's so much to life, and you can make money in so many ways. And once you start going down that path, you can't ever go back.
Welcome to the On Par podcast. I'm your host, Drew DiAlberto from the beautiful Winners Award Group showroom here in Coconut Creek, Florida. And I've got my newest friend, Lauren Klein, on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm happy that you came down here from Fort Lauderdale today to spend some time with us. So, Lauren, it's kind of an open forum. We talk about golf a lot, which I know you're not a golfer yet. We haven't corrupted you quite yet, but
Not yet.
We'll get you.
Keyword yet.
But we talk a lot about networking and business as well. And you recently went off with a partner and started your own business. So why don't you tell us a little about that?
Oh, I would love to. So earlier this year, I left one of the big law firms on Brickell, and I started my own firm. So we have a boutique firm, estate planning, elder law, probate, administration. Basically, we only focus on those things. I started the firm myself earlier this year. It was actually, so I just got back from a camping trip yesterday, like I was telling you. Last year at New Year's, I was literally at the campground, and I was like, I think the time has come. Like I knew I wanted to start my own firm, but I just had this moment where I'm like, the time has now come. So I launched the firm earlier in the year, and then I basically bullied my now law partner into joining me. Okay. I just kept sending her business books and books about starting law firms, like hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
So what was the best book that you sent her that kind of put her over the top? Was it like Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Was it Think and Grow Rich? I mean, am I on the right track?
Love all of those. The one that I sent her that I think really did it was by one of my former, on my podcast, guest, Katie Lip. She has a book called Law Practice Queen, all about I think that's the name of her coaching program, but it's all about starting a law firm. Like her whole thing is she started a firm and was like, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought it would be, which is kind of the opposite of what most people say when they start a business. And I just kept, like, I highlighted, like, easier than you think it's going to be. Come on, join me. And I was at a big law firm. She was at a big trust company. So it was a big change for both of us.
Congratulations.
Big change.
So you're a year in now.
We're almost a year. So I made the decision New Year's as we went into 2023. And then I took a little sabbatical because I had been grinding since law school started in 2009. So I started the firm in March, and I got her to join in April.
All right.
Yeah, it didn't take that long. I guess I was good at bullying her.
You're about 9-ish months.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this gets released, 10 months in.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. What would you have done differently if you could redo it?
I think the only thing, there's not much, because I did really have a big, solid plan. Like I thought about it a lot. I worked through like how it was going to look. We were really big from day one on processes and procedures, because I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it the right way. I don't want to just be a crazy, harried entrepreneur going insane. Like I want to do this the right way, build a real business. I think the only thing I would do differently, honestly, was just do more research on the software we were using and the expenses we were incurring, which is not a very interesting answer. At all, but
it makes sense though, because when we're starting a business, and I speak from experience on this one because I've started a few, some have worked, some have not worked as well. You always wind up wasting money, and it's a painful part of the learning process.
Yes.
So I totally get it.
Okay, so we're not alone. And it was definitely my fault, because my partner is definitely the one who's like, we need to be lean. And I'm like, but we need to do this, and this makes so much sense, and this software is so great. Like I'm the dreamer, and she's the more realistic one. And so she had to kind of reel me back in.
And I think we have that with the podcast, because Kerfton, who is my COO, maybe I'm his right-hand man, maybe he's mine, I'm not sure which, but I always say about Kerfton, and maybe this is the same for you and your partner, is I'm lucky that he only judges me by the few really great ideas I have, and doesn't berate me for the horrible bad ideas that I've come up with.
Yeah. But I mean, you have to have the horrible bad ideas.
To get the really good ones.
Yeah. You got to try different things and see what works and see what sticks. And I mean, that's been a big part of the first year, just what works, what doesn't work, pivoting very quickly, not getting bogged down if something isn't working,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I found also that it's all about solving problems. Like, I'll give you a funny example that's recent as of like this morning. For the last couple weeks, I've been working with some companies overseas because one Achilles heel that Winners Award Group has is we don't really have someone that can fully customize a golf bag for
Mm,
our private golf course clients and our, let's say affluent corporate clients that want a truly customized golf bag.
yeah.
So we're actually creating one right now, and hopefully we'll have it by like January 7th because that's a couple weeks early for the
Yeah.
PGA show next year.
Oh, nice.
And we're putting the Winners Award Group belt on both sides and then the logo on the ball pocket. And we
Mm,
want to take those to the PGA show, but it's basically like creating a whole business within this business
yeah.
if we can pull it off.
That's really
So
cool.
yeah, so
Wow.
and that's from Think and Grow Rich, right? You're always looking to solve problems that are out there, and I came up with another idea this morning, but I can't give you that one yet because I haven't run it by Kirkland. So, but tell us a little bit about how you're growing your business over the first year, because our audience is a lot of entrepreneurs and golfers that are entrepreneurs, and they want to know that kind of thing. So, how are you?
Yeah.
What vehicles and avenues are you using to grow your new practice?
So I would say the biggest things that we've done, I mean, number one, networking is, I know you know this more than anyone. Networking is the best thing you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
my partner and I came into this business with a network,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't necessarily
The
the
right people to
right
help you
people.
with what you wanted to
Yeah, and
do.
in
Yeah.
some ways it was. Like in some ways some of our clients are my former colleagues or they'll send me business, but we kind of had to start over in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways. And I'm talking, I've been practicing law for almost 13 years now. I kind of, okay, who do I want to be networking with? Who are the right people? Who do I actually like want to spend time with? So I'm enjoying this because if we're doing this all day, all week, whatever, it needs to be with people you like.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, and the other thing that's kind of interesting, I've always practiced law in South Florida, but I was always either Boca or Miami, which, neither of those are that far away, but I live in Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, I
Miami's
want,
really far
well, yes,
away,
it
but
is.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I know. I was driving to Brickell every day for years. I don't know how I did that.
Got it.
But I was like, I want my people to be in Broward and Fort Lauderdale and like the surrounding areas because I live there, I play there. I want this to be like my people. And so we really started from scratch. And my partner is in St. Petersburg. So we're growing networks on two different coasts and
Very cool.
completely, different markets.
Mm-hmm.
So networking for sure. And then I think just kind of thinking outside the box. I don't know if it's like surprising to anyone that the legal industry is a little bit slow to adapt and try new things. So we've done a lot of webinars, have been really great. We're doing events that you may not think of as like a typical law firm event. So we'll go to like a mommy and me place or like a parent and me place and do a wine night. We did one recently for moms at this one like kids center, and we just
Yeah.
said come hang out with us, figure out what estate planning is. We don't want you to be bored in some stuffy office. Like we have the knowledge, but we want to deliver it in a way that's more user friendly and fun with
Mm-hmm.
wine in our hands. And so we're doing stuff like that to make it less formal
Mm-hmm.
and more just a delivering education, and that has been the biggest
No, I
thing.
mean, and that makes sense because if you don't have golf as one of your networking vehicles, why not have some wine or some scotch or some whiskey or,
Mm-hmm.
craft beer tasting or something that you're going to draw the right people that you want out that have similar interests with you, which is what we do with golf.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. You're having fun, you're talking, just organically having these conversations. And I think it makes a big difference. And something that we've realized in having these conversations is usually people say, "Oh, I'm too young or I don't have enough money to need estate planning." And they usually start the conversation, "Oh, I don't have much. I don't have that much." And then we're like, "Well, you have a house, you have an investment property, you have a 401k, you have life insurance policies, you have a brokerage account. You have a lot,
Yeah.
a lot."
Oh, I mean, and it's enough to at least have the conversation about an estate plan
Yeah.
so that if something happens to you, which we're all going to die at some point,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it
Yeah.
is what it
It is
is.
what it is.
Uh, you don't really want the government and the state and everybody else
Yeah.
involved. You just want it taken care of.
Yeah.
It's
And
peace of
usually when
mind.
we have these conversations, it's peace of mind and it's the light bulbs go off and we're like, "Oh, this would happen." And that people are like, "I had no idea
Yeah.
about any of this." And I think really these things should be taught as part of, I mean, finance.
Right.
Personal finance should be taught more in
Mhm.
general. And this should be a part of it because it really is a part of a financial plan. You're just thinking about if you become incapacitated or die, which isn't the most fun thing to talk about, but I think my partner Kristen Land and I try to do a good job of making it empowering and fun and interesting and just like, oh wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't know this.
Right. So how do you get? I mean, you're not going to change the curriculum in schools, right? And unless you have billions of dollars and you can buy enough politicians to change the curriculum in schools. So how do you break through that financial barrier to learning and the things that people just don't even know that they don't know?
I mean, I think now this like time in history is the best time for people to learn with YouTube, university, the internet. I mean, even when I went to law school, 13, 14, 15 years ago,
Instagram,
like
TikTok,
yeah, there weren't
AI.
podcasts like there are now. There weren't these Facebook groups. So like there's so many ways to get information. I think it's just directing people to the information and
Mhm.
knowing where to find it. I think that's really important and trying to make it interesting.
And I mean, you've mentioned podcasts a couple times. You have your own
I
podcast.
do.
Why don't you tell us about that? Because you said 10 episodes in,
10
so
episodes
you're already
in,
in the top 10% of
which I
podcasts.
had no
Which I told
idea.
you, because most podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes,
So
and
crazy.
90% of those don't make it to 20. So tell us a little bit about your podcast as you're seeing
Wow.
some early success with that.
Well, you're making me feel really good about
I
myself. So
try.
thank you. Starting off this week strong.
I'm just giving you facts. That's it.
So my podcast is called the Wealthy Future Lawyer Squad. So future lawyers, it's for pre-law students and law students. And I interview attorneys and thought leaders about money and mindset and success and how they've gotten to where they are. And I do a lot of solo episodes as well. So I did one about stress and anxiety in law school and why it's happening. It's actually not to get too off track, but it was really interesting. I thought maybe just people who wanted to be attorneys were naturally stressed out people. And so I was like, maybe the mental
Okay.
health stats are so bad because it's just like a very analytical type of brain. They actually did a study that most law students start out at the same mental health level as the average population, but within weeks it takes like a severe nosedive. And I think it's because of the culture in law schools, which then carries over into the legal career. And it's really bad. Like the depression rates are really bad, the alcoholism and drug use rates are really bad. Like it's just not good. And so I started this podcast as part of my mission to show that life and law school and legal career doesn't have to be miserable. There's many ways to do it. You don't just have to make money through a job and worry about your student loans every day until, you eventually pay off your $200,000. There's so many things and ways to when you start to read books like Think and Grow Rich, and all that whole kind of rich dad, poor dad, you're like, your mind just kind of explodes. And so that's what I'm trying to do for these law students. Like just get their brains to stop thinking so, literally and like, okay, you can, there's so much to life and you can make money in so many ways. And once you start going down that path, you can't ever go back.
Well, and you can be really good at your profession and really bad at managing a business. I
Yeah.
mean, I've
Or
seen
just
it.
your money.
Also, yeah,
Just your
or
money.
or both.
Or both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always have this story. I worked with a lot of really high earning partners in these big law firms, like $1 million a year plus.
And they're broke.
And they're broke. Or they think they're broke. You know what I mean? Or they think they're broke.
Yeah.
So they think they can't change jobs or start a law firm or whatever it is that the story they've told themselves for years that they can't do.
Right.
And I've had them actually tell me this. So like, oh, I wish I could retire early. It's not possible for me. I'm like, but you make $1 million a year. And yes, you are, you're not really getting any deductions because you're basically not a W-2,
No,
but
it also depends how many cars do they own.
yeah, and
how
where's
many
the house?
boats do they own?
Yeah.
If you buy a boat, that's a liability, but if you buy a rental property, then that's now an asset, right? I mean, there's a big difference.
There's a huge difference. I remember in Rich Dad Poor Dad where his wife wanted a Ferrari or a Maserati or whatever it was, and he's like, okay, so we're gonna go buy this apartment building and we're gonna wait until that can pay for it.
And that'll pay for the Ferrari.
It's not that the Ferrari or the boat or the multi-million-dollar house in Coral Gables is bad, but if you don't set yourself up to be able to make choices and
well, would you rather
free.
buy it with your money or the rent or the tenant's money?
Right. When
that's where the decision comes down. So
yeah.
okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So tell us a story about how networking has propelled your growth, or a really great situation that you build a relationship through wine, or not golf, but a charity event or something else where, and then it turned into, oh my gosh, this is now a whale of a client, or a referral partner that's going to send me 10 clients a year
Yeah.
forever. Give us a story. Give us one of your stories.
So in law school, I was a professional networker. Like literally, that's
Okay.
I had my best friend Ashley. She always comes up in like podcasts. I'm like, you need to listen to all these episodes because she pops up. Like
And
she's very
Ashley,
been
okay.
instrumental in my life.
We'll listen for Ashley on your podcast then.
And yeah, she'll be on there for sure. And we would just go to all these events as little law students and hand out our business card and take other people's cards and write something on it about them and then send them an email. Like it's so simple. So I kind of started learning to do that in law school and I started seeing the results from that. Then flash forward to now I have my own firm, but flash forward like 6 years ago, I joined one of the big firms. And at my law school, and coming from a family with no attorneys, and we're not a wealthy family, like getting to that law firm was like impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I got there was the networking that I did. I joined different organizations and whatever. All of those skills that I was learning and cultivating over those years have now led to us actually having a successful almost first year as a law firm. Like there's no way this would be happening. I left the firm without a book of business.
Yeah.
So $0 coming in. This would have never happened.
You probably had a very severe non-compete with them, I'm sure. Like
No,
most.
I was a senior associate and I was $800 an hour. And so it was really hard for me to be the one to bring in the business. It was usually the partners. And then I would then cultivate the relationship with the clients. So I had the skills, but it was actually like bringing the business in the door was very difficult at that level in that big of a firm.
Well, because you were buried in paperwork.
Buried in paperwork, billable hour requirements, working my, can we curse?
Right. We try not to.
Okay, working my butt off.
There you go. My tushy off. So yeah, we try not to curse on the podcast because we have a lot of younger listeners, because one of our goals is to get the younger generation into golf and networking.
Yeah.
So we try and tell them, like, my personal experience is when I started networking, I was about 29. And when I started golf networking, I was about 36. And the people that I met through golf networking were CEOs of companies, general managers, vice presidents. The people that I met before I was golf networking were small to mid-sized business owners. And there's nothing wrong with either, because we can serve anyone in the couple of businesses that I have. But when I opened myself up to learning golf and trying to play it, because no one can play it well, that I know like five people that can play well, and everybody else, and then there's everybody else. So what advice would you give to those younger generations? Like mine is, learn golf earlier. But as far as networking and building your database and things like that you seem to do at a very young age, if you were in college at the time, what would your advice be for, like my son is going to be 15 and my daughter's going to be 8, and she's already got that, wild extrovert maverick mentality, which I don't know where the kids get that from. I have no idea whatsoever. But what would your advice be to like my kids and kids in high school and middle school right now, as far as, what you've learned? And you've made mistakes just like all of us, but what have you done right? What would you have changed if you could give the younger generation advice?
I would have started building relationships with people and been willing to ask people if I needed something. Like that is very hard for me to ask something of someone. Okay. So when I met Romy Wallach of the Daily Drip, I met her, I joined, and immediately she introduced me to all these people, and I was like, what does she want from me? She wants something from me. Like I didn't grow up with people doing that for me. That was new. And then I realized she didn't want anything. She just wanted to connect me with people because she believed in me and my business. Yeah. So I think asking people if there's someone you want to meet, or a relationship you want to build, or a job that you want, an internship, like not being afraid to ask for it and to just really build true relationships and keep up with people. Be interested in their lives, follow up with them, set reminders even on your phone, once a quarter, once a year, depending on how much you want to be in touch with them. Just build the relationships and make the ask. Like,
Yeah.
what are they going to say? Like, the worst they say is no. And also, just don't take advice from people who aren't where you want to be in life. That took me a long
Yeah.
time to learn, a very, very, very long time. If I would have learned that like 10 years ago, it would have been
That's
saved me a lot of
that's
stress.
that's some really powerful advice. And the hard part is getting it through a teenager whose job is to rebel brain.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I've found that hearing it from somebody other than dad or
yeah,
mom is 10 times more powerful at times.
absolutely.
I mean, we did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and thankfully my kids are fans. They made my day the
Oh.
other morning. My daughter is 8, and I'm driving both kids to school that morning, and my daughter says, "Hey, can we listen to the On Par podcast?" Exactly.
Oh, that is so
and
cool.
and so we drive and we drop her off, and then we
What a
got to take my
compliment.
son. And I said, "Listen, we're only like 10 minutes in the episode. If you want to listen to music or something." He's like, "No, I love the On Par
Oh
podcast."
my gosh.
And it happened to be the one that we did about the Man Up golf tournament coming up on December 1st, that funds a faith-based men's conference. That
Mm.
the second day is less faith forward and more halftime speeches, motivational halftime speeches all day. And my son called Ed Colo, who's one of the chairpersons, and he said, "Hey, I'd really like to volunteer for that." And
Wow,
now we're gonna have him at the Man
that's
Up golf
cool.
tournament
So he's
now.
already doing it. He's reaching out, he's making the ask.
And I've brought my kids to my networking group Dream Team. I've brought them to charity events. I've brought them to 6 Degrees, and people remember what they said at 6 Degrees more than they remember what I say at 6 Degrees. So I think, and I said this to Dave Bennett a couple weeks ago on the podcast, who runs and owns Connections for Business, an IT firm in Hollywood. And we came up with, they should start networking not just with kids at other schools, but their parents' networks. Because
Mm,
when they need that first job, or
yeah,
that first letter of recommendation, or there's volunteer service hours, it's not necessarily going to be their parents, but their parents' center of influence
sure.
that can help them into those opportunities. I mean, I'm a perfect example. I got my first job in college after real job, like not the high school crappy jobs,
Yeah.
but I got a job. My first job in sales was selling cars at Marooney Auto Plaza back
Mm,
before Auto Nation bought them in
mm-hmm.
Pembroke Pines, because my dad worked for Auto Nation at the time and he recommended me for a summer job. And the guy only asked me 2 questions, and it was basically like, "Look, I'll outwork everybody you have here." And he bought that and he hired me, and I did really well at it and sold cars for a few summers in between semesters at college.
Love it.
But without that connection, I'd have been working for the accountant, pushing paperwork and working on his database, which
Yeah.
I wasn't really learning anything past the second summer. So, and then I've been in sales ever since, and I was 18 at the time. So I think that that's more powerful than, networking with kids at other schools is good because it opens you up to more network. But
Yeah.
what you have much younger kids than I.
Yeah.
They're not networking
I
yet.
know, but my wheels are turning, now just thinking about what I do now is going to really, set them up for a lot of things. And I mean, I don't want anything ever handed to them. Like, it's cool that you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I will outwork everyone. She didn't come in like, oh, thanks for the job,
Well, what
just
else was I gonna
assuming.
say to the guy? I had no experience at
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, you could have a sales job. You could sell
But that's
cars
an
this
amazing
summer."
combination because that shows that you were given an opportunity, but you also weren't taking it for granted. Because I think a lot of people, when they're just not that you were just given it, but
Yeah,
when they have opportunities like that, they kind of like,
I mean,
oh,
don't get me wrong. It was my job to lose. As long as I
yeah,
didn't do
yeah,
anything offensive in the
right,
interview,
right,
he was probably gonna put me somewhere for the
yeah,
summer. But my goal, and every kid in college goal for the summer, maybe you're not going to be a professional like a lawyer, a doctor, a CPA, where you have to have a degree.
yeah,
you know I don't know that I necessarily need a degree to do what I do now, but I definitely needed the network and the sales training and the skills, which the sales training in car sales back then was
mm,
nothing. So my dad told me to tell the truth, do what I said, and call people back, which was, he didn't even remember the advice, but it was so good. I'm talking about it now in my early 40s,
Yeah.
advice that I got when I was 18, and I was like, Dad, I'm screwed. I got a job selling cars for the summer. I appreciate it, but I have no idea how to sell a car. And,
That's great
you
advice,
know,
though.
but
It's
it's,
simple advice, but most people don't follow it.
well, and in South Florida, the joke is that 90% of people don't meet that bar.
Yeah. I think
So
that's probably a generous percentage.
maybe it should be 97%. But no, I mean, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit. Let's talk about how we can get in touch with your law firm and how we can get in touch with your podcast, because I want to make sure we share that with our
Yeah.
audience.
Oh, so the firm is Flourish Law Group, and it's kind of cool when we were thinking of the name. Most law firms, we would be Klein and Landon, and we're like, we want to build a brand around what we're doing, not just us as the brand, and we really believe in it. So Flourish Law Group, and our tagline is helping your family flourish at all stages of life, because we
Nice.
help young families with kids. We help college students get their estate plan in place. That's something we offer. If our client has college age kids, we'll do like their healthcare directives for free, because if something happens, they're not technically a minor anymore. The parent
Right.
doesn't have control. But so that's the name of the firm. So you can find us on flourishlawgroup.com is our website. And we're also active on Instagram. I'm lawyer Lauren Klein. And then we have Flourish Law Group on there as well.
Got it.
The podcast is the Wealthy Future Lawyer Squad. And that really is centered on bringing financial mindset and connection education to law students, because life can be fun and law school can be great.
Yeah.
And you can have so much success, if you just kind of think about life differently.
Okay.
So you can find that, anywhere that podcasts are
Spotify,
available,
Apple,
all
Google,
the places,
all the good places.
YouTube. Yeah, and
Okay.
check it out. It's really, there's some
Very,
good
very
episodes
cool.
on there.
All right. You want to tell us a story about camping or your kids to close this thing
Yeah.
out? Go ahead.
So we went this weekend. I don't want to even say the name. I'm scared everyone's going to start going there. Whatever.
No, that's fine.
Bowman's Landing.
Top secret. Oh, now it's not secret. Go ahead.
It is. I tell everyone anyway. So our friends found it in the midst of the pandemic. They're like, we just want to go somewhere and do something. It's this cool little campground with all these. It's cheating. It's not full camping because we have an infant and a toddler. I'm like,
I was gonna ask
not
you
doing all
about
that.
camping with a
No. It is glamping.
Yeah,
It is
okay.
And this time we cheated even more. We were in a cabin. My parents and our kids were in a house. So we really cheated this time.
I don't think that's like, you might as well call it an Airbnb.
Usually we cook over the fire. Well, it's on Airbnb.
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough. All right.
Usually we cook over the fire, but we're like, we just want to relax. So we just cooked in the house and then we hung out on the fire. But it's so great because we go with all our friends. We rent out the whole space. So we just run the whole campground.
Yeah.
We took the boys on the river, Itchitucky Springs, just down, and saw some alligators. It was just really nice. And I actually made a post on Instagram on the way that when I started the firm, and last year when I was sitting at this exact spot thinking it would be so nice, because every time we would go, this is probably our sixth time, I would be working the whole time. I'd have my laptop on my lap, working away, and I was like, won't it be nice when I can decide not to do that and I can just go with my family? I put my phone on do not disturb the whole weekend. I was very confused because I forgot I did. I'm like, why am I not getting any text messages? And then I opened it up and I was like,
airplane mode for 4 days. Whoops.
But it was very like full circle moment to be driving and thinking, this is what I wanted. This is what I designed. And now it's actually happening. Awesome. It was really, really cool.
Very cool. Congratulations
again
on that and your initial success. And the podcast, that is a big deal. Like most podcasts, for real, 90% don't make it past the third episode.
Well, I've been lucky to have a lot of really cool guests. I would love to have you as a guest because I think that's what makes it. I get to just
deal. You got it.
You just get to listen to other people and learn from them and just hear cool stories. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it's turned into business for me. Camping has actually turned into business for me. I'm part of an organization called Indian Princesses.
I remember you mentioned that. I've heard of it before.
Dads and daughters. We go camping twice a year. We have a fancy dance. We do a beach party with the whole families every year.
I love it.
I've brought some of the folks here to the showroom. I've gotten business from my lending company from those guys.
Wow.
So, everything's a network, and we don't talk business just like golf. We may not talk business for 4 days, and then it's like, hey, what do you do exactly? And then we wind up doing business together.
Networking doesn't have to be just like handing out business cards and be, I don't know, what do you do? Talking shop. It's the worst. It's building relationships and then seeing what happens from it, and we get calls all the time from people. I'm like, how did you hear about us? And they're like, well, this person and that person. And they end up being like a multimillionaire. And we're like, oh,
you never know.
Wonderful.
There you go. And they need estate planning.
They do.
And
They
maybe
do.
to be a guest on the podcast
Maybe.
too.
Maybe.
I love it. All right, Lauren, thanks so much for being
Thanks,
here.
Drew. This was
Winners
so
Award
fun.
Group, our sponsor, thank you very much. In Coconut Creek, I'm your host, Drew DiAlberto from Lauren Klein. We're signing off on the On Par podcast, and we'll catch you again next Thursday with another episode.